There's a Hashem. Today's daf is Masechta Zevachim Daf Samazayim, number 67. Here's Lewis. Be'ezras Hashem. Hi, Lewis. We're just beginning. Today's daf is Masechta Zevachim Daf Samazayim, number 67, and we're going to begin from the Mishnah on daf Samach Samach Vava Mebeis. Okay, the Mishnah says like this. Now, just to recap, I mean, it should be very, very clear to you that there's a difference between a chata sa'of, which is this what this person's doing, and an ola sa'of, which is what this person is doing with marked yellow. An ola sa'of is done, you have to, with your nail, the kohen cuts two simonim. Simonim means a windpipe and a food pipe, right? You have to cut both of them. But when you do and it has to be done on top of the mizbeach, right? Plus, there's other differences. You have to squeeze the blood against the wall, but that's the basic difference. Whereas a chata sa'of, you do it on the bottom of the mizbeach and you cut only one siman. Okay, so now let us learn the Mishnah. Now this idea, I just want to a very important point. This idea of doing malika, cutting a bird's neck with your nail, if you do it outside the Beis Hamikdash, the bird is an avela. That's not a shchita. It doesn't work in outside the Beis Hamikdash. It's a unique way of slaughtering that only works in the Beis Hamikdash. So if, let's say, outside the Beis Hamikdash, I would put the nail into the back of the neck of a bird and kill it. That bird, my chicken would become a nevela. Okay, my chicken would become a nevela, and by becoming a nevela, it would give me a tuma. Okay, so again, hi, we just began with Samach Vava Mebeis by the Mishnah. So here we go. The Kulan and all these cases where we passled the bird in the Beis Hamikdash, let's say the Chatas Oif, and you thought about it and you said, I'm going to turn it into an Oilas Oif, and all the cases that we said in the previous mission that you passled, but you did a Malika. Now, normally if I do a Malika outside the Beis Hamikdash, the bird is a Nevela. Here, because you did a Malika in the Beis Hamikdash, although the carbon was pasul, it's not an avela, and therefore this bird ein metamim bebeis habliya would not render you tameh if you eat it. That's the din of a bird. When you eat it and swallow that's when you become tameh. Here it wouldn't make you tameh because it's not an avela, because you actually did the malika in the Beis Hamikdash. And despite the fact that it's a pasul of carbon. Umay alam behem. You could have mi'ila with it. In other words, it still belongs to Hashem, and anything that belongs to Hashem, if you use for your own benefit, that's called mi'ila. However, there's the one case that it's not mi'ila anymore. Chutz mechatas oif sha'aso lamata kamasa chatas l'shem chatas. A regular chatas oif, a bird chatas, that you made it on the bottom of the mizbeach, and you did exactly the way a chatas is supposed to be done, with you slicing only one siman, and you did it l'shem chatas, having a mind chatas. You made a kosher chatas. This picture over here, right? So the din is by a chatas bird. After the kohen did this squeezing against the wall, the kohen eats the bird. So now the bird becomes the property of the kohen, so to speak. Therefore, there's no me'ila anymore. Me'ila is only if you're violating the property of God. But here, it's not the property of God. It belongs to the kohen. Whereas an oilas oif, even after you did the squeezing of the blood against the wall of the mizbeach, like he's doing on top of the mizbeach here, if there is me'ila, because really you're supposed to take the oila you're supposed to take the bird and throw it on top of the mizbeach and give it to Hashem, so to speak, have it burned on the top of the mizbeach. So there would be me'ila in that case. But a chatas oif, that you made a regular chatas oif, as soon as you squeeze the blood and did the blood work, then there's no me'ila anymore. Now comes the Mishnah with a new topic, and that takes us the whole daf. You have an oilas ha'oif. Where are you supposed to do the oilas ha'oif? On top of the mizbeach, right? What you did was sha'asor lamata. You did it on the bottom of the mizbeach, kemas chatas, and you did it exactly like a chatas. In other words, you only sliced. This was an oilas ha'oif, right? And let's say it's a woman. She's supposed to bring an oilas ha'oif and a chatas ha'oif, and you did the oilas ha'oif. You did the oilas bird. But you did it on the kohen did it on the bottom of the mizbeach, and he did it like a chatas was supposed to be done. That means he sliced only one simon, and he's thinking shem chatas that it should be chatas. So it walks like a duck, it talks like a duck. So does it become a carbon chatas? Reb Lezer says boy. It's still a carbon oila, and it still belongs to Hashem, and there is me'ilah. Rabbi Yeshua says, as soon as you do the squeezing of the blood, ein ma'alim boy. It doesn't. There is no me'ilah. The Gemara is going to explain, and we'll see that because it becomes a chatas. Very interesting that you actually turned the oila into a chatas. So basically, what he did was he took this oila that's supposed to be brought on top of the mizbeach, and what did he do? He did it like this. He pushed it on the bottom of the mizbeach, but really it's an oila. So now, but he did the ma'aseh chatas. He only sliced one simon of the bird's neck. So then he turned that oila into chatas according to Rabbi Yeshua, and Rabbi Lezer says you can't do that. Amar Rabbi Lezer says, and Rabbi Lezer is going to try to prove his point. Ma im chatas she'ein ma'alim ba lishma a regular karbe chatas oif. That a regular karbe chatas, as soon as you chatas oif. As soon as you squeeze the blood, there's no more me'ilah if you do it right. But let's say, let's say you took the karbachatas oif and you started thinking oila, so it becomes a pasala chatas, my alam boy. Then there is me'ilah with this chatas because it's not eaten by the kahanim, so there is me'ilah. So therefore, this is one. So now let's make the other side of the kal v'chayma. Oila sa'oif. When you do it right, you get me'ilah. When you're going to turn it into a chatas, certainly there should be me'ilah, despite the fact that you changed the name. So Reb Lezer just tries to make this kal v'chomer that an oilas oif, if you try to change the name to a chatas, it should still remain an oila. Amalei Rabbi Yeshua says loy. That's not the case. Imamarta by carbon chatas, shishina shma l'shem oila. If you're going to change its name to an oila, you're taking it out from something that did not have mila, and you're turning it into something that does have mila. An oila has meila. Shekain shmina as shema l'dava sheyesh by meila. You change the name to something that does have meila. That's why you're ma'il with it. In the first case, chatas, that when you change this name to an oila, it becomes, you have me'ilah. However, time of oila, an oila, shashida shma l'shem chatas, when you change its name to a chatas, basically, you're trying to say that this bird could be eaten by the kohanim, right? It was hegdish, it was consecrated to be an oila, and the kohen went and brought it on the bottom of the mizbeach, made it look like a chatas, did all the actions of a chatas and started thinking a chatas. So basically, he changed the name from an oila to a chatas. So therefore, there is no mamila. That's why there's no mamila, because you changed its name to something that there is no meila. That we go now to Samazai Namad Aleph. Amaloi Rabbi Lezer says, Barei kochi kochim. Let's take a regular carbon chatas, a big animal kochim chatas. Sheshachtam bedorim. You shechted it on the south. Now, kochim, where is it supposed to be shechted? We've seen this many times. It's supposed to be shechted in the north, right? By these rings over here. And instead, he shechted the carbon chatas in the south of the Beis Hamikdash. Now, so he did a kochim. He did a maisa that shows it's like kochim kalim, and sheshachtim l'shem kochim kalim, and he shechted it for a kochim kalim. He shechted it for a shlamim, let's say. Yechichu, that's proved. that what? Despite doing that, there is still Me'ila. Shekain Shina Shema L'Davar Shem Me'ila. He tried to change its name to something that there is no Me'ila. He's turning the Kachik Kachim into a Kachik Kalam. A Kachik Kalam, there is no Me'ila. Despite the fact he tried to do that, Umayalim Ben, there's still Me'ila on this animal. So don't wonder about an oilus or oif. Even though you tried to change its name to a chatas or oif, shimalaboy, you still have mi'ila with it. Rabbi Yeshua said, no, loy, you can't compare your case, the animal case, to the bird case. If you can take a regular carbon chatas, an animal, that you shechted in the south, and you shechted for kachim kalam, for shlamim, it still remains like a chatas, because it still has me'ila, shekain shina shmam, l'dava sheyesh bo isa v'heter. You did change its name to a kachim kalam, let's say, but even a kachim kalam has a certain part that has me'ila, because a regular animal, a kachim shlamim, part of it there's mila and part of it is no mila. After you do the sprinkling, there's the insides, the amorim, the fats that belong on the mizbeach. That's Hashem's food, so to speak. So there is meila in that. The rest of the meat, there is no meila. So if you took a karban chatas and tried to turn it into a shlamim, you're really turning it to something that has part of it meila. So therefore, it always has me'ila. You can't take off the me'ila of this kachim kachim, this karban chatas. Time about oila, but take an oilas, a bird oila, and you turned it into a chatas a oaf. As soon as you did the actions of an oif, right now it should become the food of the kahanim, and therefore there should be no because there's no part of the bird that goes on the mizbeach. The entire bird, after you squeeze the blood, is eaten by the kahanim. So therefore, you basically turn this oila into something that there is no me'ila. You changed it to something that is totally heter. So basically, Rabbi Yeshua maintains his opinion. You take an oilas and oif, you do a maisa. You do the whole action of this oilus oif. Instead of doing it on top of the mizbeach, you do it on the bottom of the mizbeach, and you do all the actions that apply by a chatas oif, right? You only shecht one simon on it, and you're doing it on the bottom of the mizbeach. It becomes like a chatas oif. It's like there is no meila anymore. That's all that it says. There is no meila. Tanya, we learned in the brayso. Rabbi Yeshua said even a third proof to Rabbi Yeshua. Let's say I take a carbon osher, and I shecht it, which there is me'ila, and I shecht it in the north for a shlamim. Sheshina Shema, you changed its name to a shlamim, and nevertheless, there's still me'ila on that animal. That means that. So don't wonder why I hold by a bird which has me'ila, that even if you're going to change it into a chatas oif, it's still going to have me'ila. That's Rabbi Lazar still maintaining his opinion. Rabbi Yeshua said, "Loy, you can't compare the cases." By an asham, shemshina eshemoy, despite the fact that you changed its name to a shlamim, you tried to turn it into a shlamim, l'shinas mekaymai. You didn't do any action to show that it's a shlamim, because you're shechting it in the north, right? But our case of oila, instead of shechting it on top of the mizbeach, instead of doing the malik on top of the mizbeach, you're doing it on the bottom of the mizbeach, and you're doing a different malika. You're only doing one siman. Sheshina shma ushinas mekayma. You change its name and you change its place. Amalei Rabbi Lezer says, Asham sheshachti bedamer l'shem shlami yachicha. So let's take the case. We're in Asham. You did totally wrong. Instead of shechting it in the north, you shechted it in the south. And instead of shechting it for an Asham, you shechted for a shlamim. Shem shlami yachicha. So here you did two things. Sheshina es shemoy, v'shina shmekayma. You changed its name and changed its place. And despite the fact, despite doing all that, there's still me'ila on that meat. Don't worry about the oila. Even if you changed its name to a chatas, and you changed its place where you did the malika, you did it on the bottom of the mizbeach. Mayalaba, you'll still have Mi'ila. Like Rabbi Yeshua said, my case is still different. Loy Mamarta Ba'asham Shashina Shmoi. You change its name, I grant you that. Vishinis Makaiman, you change its place. You change it from shechting in the north, you shecht it in the south. But V'leishinis Masav, you didn't change any action. You didn't show a definitive action of that this animal is a shlamim. Taime ba'oila, but by oila sheshina shma, you changed its name to a chatas. Vesmaseh, you did something totally different because you only did malik on one siman. And v'shines makoima, and you changed its place by doing it on the bottom of Mizbeach. So therefore, the oila becomes like is like a chatas that there is no mi'ila. And that was the end of that. Seems that Rabbi Yeshua, answered his way out, and Rabbi Lezer has no more questions. Amar Rava, so Rava says, why didn't Rabbi Eliezer ask this question to Rabbi Yeshua? Let's do an action by the Ashim case. Ashim sheshachtu badarm, you shechted in the south. L'shem shlamim for shlamim. V'shinim baalam, and you shechted, changed the name of the baalam. So instead of shechting it for Ruvain, you're shechting it for Shimon. So that is like a shinu ma'asa. Sheshina shmoi. So in my case, it's sheshina shmoi. You change its name to a shlamim. Vishinas makayma, you change its place, you shechted it in the south. Vishinas masav, and you did something by shechting it for somebody else. So Rabbi Lezer could have had even a different case, and still you have Mila with that. Midlei kamalei hachi shmami no. Since Rabbi Lezer did not say this to Rabbi Yeshua, nochis Rabbi Lezer Rabbi Tamid Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Lezer, started to think into what the real reason of Rabbi Yeshua is, and maybe he started to acquiesce to it. The Alma Rav Alta Barahava, Rav Abba said, Oima Hoy Rabbi Yeshua meant to say, not only is there no mi'ila, when an oila you do it on the bottom of Zbeach like the Maisei Chatas, but it becomes like a chatas, and I keep reiterating that it like changes into a chatas. Oilas oiv she'asa l'mata kamas chatas shem chatas kaven shebol molak b'simen echa nimsheches. As soon as you do the malika on one simen, nimsheches, this becomes drawn into the nasas chatas. The oiler like now turned into a chatas oiv. So right away, if you see that, that means that if the person was chayev to bring a chatas oiv, and he was supposed to bring an oilas oif and a chatas oif, and he brought the oilas oif to the kohen. He made it like a chatas oif, so it could be, you would think that the person was yoitze his chatas oif, and now all he has to do is bring a new oilas oif. Because the way Rabbi Yeshua said that once the oilas oif was done exactly like a chatas oif on the bottom of the mizbeach, then it becomes a chatas oif. But we're going to learn that may not be so. But be that as it may, the oilas oif, according to Rabbi Yeshua, the way Rabbi Adbarav explains, becomes the chatas oif. If that's the case, let's go in the reverse order. Chatas oif shasoy lamala kamase oila. If you turned around the chatas oif, and instead of doing it on the bottom of the mizbeach like he's doing, you did it on top of the mizbeach. You took the chatas and brought it where this kohen is. So what would be the din that way? So why don't you say that? Really, you took this chasatz oif, and you did malik on one, and then if you continue and do a malik on the second siman, it should become now an oilas and oif. Would you say that's true? Rabbi Yochanan said that the argument is only in one direction, with an oiler turning into a chatas, but not the other way around. That's what it seems to say. My love, kachi etzah v'suloi. Didn't Rabbi Yochanan say in the name of Rabbi Noi that the Mishnah is going only in one direction, which is oiler turning into a chatas, and not a chatas turning into an oiler? Answers Gemara, not so. Kachi etzah shakul Mishnah. What he meant to say is the Mishnah has this line of thinking, but it could go either way. Oiler turning into a chatas, and a chatas, you're doing the maisa of an oila. Rav Ashi says, logically, you can say there's a big difference, and there is a nice difference. Rav Ashi says, Bishlama oilas oif shaselamata kamase chatas l'shem chatas. If you take a bird that's supposed to be brought on top of the mizbeach, and what do? You do it on the bottom of the mizbeach, right? Like a chatas. So you take the oil and you turned it into a chatas. Kivin the ha hechsheira b'simin echad. When you did just one, when you did it on the bottom and you only cut one simin, so it was never an oila. It became a chatas because it's kosher as a chatas if you do malik on one simin. Vaha, because a chatas needs one simin. Vaha, an oila needs hechsher b'shnei siman, needs two siminim. So the oilet oif lamata laces. So you didn't do an oilus and oif. You didn't make it into an oilus and oif because you didn't cut the second simin. So kevin the molek bas simin echad. Since you only did one simin, nimshechas v'nachtes chatas oif. So then this oilet turns into a chatas oif. But however, if you do in the reversed order, el chatas oif, kevin the mamamar melika b'chol mokum kshera, michi molek bas simin echad ipasla. Chatas oif, you could do the malika anywhere. So even if I went on top of the mizbeach and did the chatas oif where the oila is, and I just did one siman there, as soon as you did a siman, it's now a chatas. And therefore, if you start thinking that's an oila, so ipasu, you made it a pasula chatas. So therefore, it always remains with its mila. Kihad the malak b'dik siman. Even if I did the next siman, how could you turn that into an oilus oif? Because right away it was a chatas. As soon as you did a siman, you made a chatas, but thinking oila, and you made it a puzzle of bird. So if I went up to the mizbeach and did this to a chatas, as soon as I sliced one siman, and thinking oila, I puzzled the bird. So memela. So therefore, it becomes, it cannot now continue on and turn into a kosher oilas ha'oif. Let's do the Gemara. Gufa, we learned. Amar Avada Barahava, Omer Rabbi Yeshua used to say, oilas ha'oif sha'asor l'mata kamas echatas, l'shem chatas, kevin shebolak bos ben echad, m'sheches v'natzes chatas ha'oif. That's Rabbi Yeshua's opinion, that an oilas ha'oif, that you did it on the bottom, and you did a malik on one siman, it becomes a chatas ha'oif. You could turn an oila into a chatas. So the Gemara says, Tashma, I'm going to bring you from Masechta Kinam. It's not so learned, but there's a Masechta about birds. And there, the Mishnah says, the whole Masechta, according to the Gemara, was written by Rabbi Yeshua. And there, the Mishnah says, Chatas l'zu v'ayluzu, asher shteim l'mala mechza kasha mechza pasel, shteim l'mata mechza kasha mechza pasel, achas l'mala, here's the key. There's a person, let's give you the story. You have Rachel and Leah, each one was supposed to bring either a chatas or an oila. One was missing a chatas, one needed to bring an oila, and they gave the bird, the nest with the two birds to the kohen. And he didn't know, he took one of the birds, did it on top of the mizbeach, one of the birds he did it on the bottom of the mizbeach. So, shteim pesulois. The apostle that they both Rachel and Leah now have to bring new birds because Shani Oimer, because I'm going to say that the one that was supposed to be the Chatas, Karva Lamala, he brought it on top of the Mizbeach, so he passed that. The Oila, the one that he was supposed to bring as an Oila, maybe he brought that on the bottom of the Mizbeach, Karva Lamata, and he passed the Oila. So that's what the Mishnah says. The Mishnah seems to say that a bird, an Oilas Oif, that you bring on the bottom of the Mizbeach, does not become a Chatas, it becomes Puzzle. So the Gemara says, Nihi nami the oila karva lamata, even if you want to say the oila that you bring it to the bottom, if you're going to say that the oila that you bring on the bottom, an oila sa'oif that you bring on the bottom of Mizbeach turns into a chata sa'oif, timshach v'tehav a chata sa'oif, then let that bird become the chata sa'oif, and therefore exempt the woman, the Rachel or Leah, whichever needed to bring a chatas, now she had her chatas taken care of. Because even if the kohen messed up and brought the oila at the bottom of the mizbeach, but we learned that an oila that you bring on the bottom of the mizbeach and you don't think anything, technically, if you did a ma'aseh chatas there, it could turns into a karban chatas, and she should be exempt from bringing a new karban chatas. So and the whole Masechta Kinam was written by Rabbi Yeshua, so we see that's not his opinion. So answers the Gemara, could be Ema da Amar Rab Shimon b'chad Gavra, betray Gavra mi Amar. True, Rabbi Yeshua would say that an oilus and oif, that you did it lamata and you made it into a chatas oif, for one person, he was yoytze his chatas ha'oiv. But here it's two different people. It could have been Leah's bird that was supposed to be an oila turning into a chatas to be yoitzi to moitzi Rachel's chi of chatas. That we wouldn't say. It's only if the person was supposed to bring an oila and a chatas, and he brought an oila, and the kohen messed it up and turned it into a chatas. That person is yoitze his mitzvah of chatas. But if the kohen turned it into a chatas, and now you want to use that chatas for another lady that's mechayev a chatas, she wouldn't be yoitze. And finally, we'll end with this. Tashma, come in here. Chatas v'oila stuma fereshus, asa kula lamala mechza kosher mechza posel. Kula lamata mechza kosher mechza posel. Chetzah lamala v'chetzah lamata einik shayel stuma u'metchalekas b'neihem. But v'ilu mufarashim loy. This is a complicated case, but basically, between the two women, they were mechayev 6 birds. Each one was chayev a chatas and a oila, so that's one. So that's 4, and each one promised to bring either a chatas or needed to bring an oila. So they need to bring 6 birds. So they brought 3 nests, and one of them was mufareshes. Mufareshes means one was a chatas and an oila, but he brought it totally all on the bottom. So the Gemara says that everybody is puzzled. You have to bring a whole new sets of birds. So the Gemara says, "Va'amai ni nami the oila karva lamata timshach v'tehavi chatas oif." Let it be yaitze, the person that even if the oila was brought on the bottom, this oila was owned by one person that was also chayav a chatas, and you brought it on the bottom. So let that oila turn into a chatas, and therefore that person who was mechayev to bring a carbon chatas, that lady should now be exempt from her carbon chatas. So you're going to say, the Gemara concludes, are you going to say that Masechta Kinim is not Rabbi Yeshua? We're going to learn that the whole Masechta Kinim was written by Rabbi Yeshua, and concludes the Gemara on the next page. That's the whole Gemara. The Gemara proves that the whole Masechta Kinim is Rabbi Yeshua. So the Gemara says, you're right. Rabbi Yeshua only said an oilus and oif turns into a chatas in the respect that there is no mi'ila anymore. But the person will still be obligated, if they're chayiv to bring a chatas, to bring a new carbon chatas. Okay, we'll stop over here.
Thank you.
Okay, good nacht, everybody.
Have a good Shabbos.
Where'd you leave off?
Left off by the Tashema, but I spoke out from this whole Tashema is just proving on Samazayim Amabeis that Rabbi Yeshua wrote Masechta Kinim. So you can't say that one Mishnah is not like Rabbi Yeshua. So the Gemara just modifies what Rabbi Yeshua meant to say. Rabbi Yeshua meant to say that a bird, an oilus oif, that you did it on the bottom of the mizbeach, it becomes like a chatas, that there is no me'ila anymore, but the person still is obligated to bring a carbon chatas, to bring another bird as a carbon chatas. That's all.
Okay. Well, this is the last time tuning in live for a while. We're going to Israel Saturday night.
Oh, very good.
So,
okay. We'll
Shalom.
Shalom. Back b'shalom.
Thank you. If you want, you can send the link to the things. If I have a chance, I'll probably fall behind anyways, so I'll have a chance to listen to them.
Okay, sure, absolutely. I will send it out.
Okay, thank you. Good Shabbos.
Shabbos, Fergus and Tide.
Good Shabbos.
Shabbos.